everybody. A very, very good afternoon to all of you. So thank you for taking time off to participate in today's lunchtime webinar organized by the Singapore Chinese Chamber of Commerce and Industry Career Women's Group, also known as SCCCI CWG. So today's webinar topic is SME Digitalization Simplified. 5 digitalization and automation strategies to transform your business. I'm Violet Lim, Chief Cupid and CEO of Lunch Actually Group and a member of the Business Pursuits team under the SCCCI Career Women's Group Committee, as well as your host and moderator for today. So you can actually use the chat box right now to just say hi and all the panelists will be able to see it. Yeah. So before we start, I would like to just brief you on the house rules. So first and foremost, there will be a recording of today's session, and it will also be uploaded to the SCCCI's website shortly, and it will also be available on our CWG Facebook page as well as LinkedIn page. I will also be sharing with you the QR code link later for your access at the end of this webinar. And secondly, like I've mentioned just now, you can use the chat box. Yeah, so I see some of you have been using it to say hi. Yeah, so you can use the chat box to just say hi, to just, ask questions to the panelists. And also you can also use the Q&A box as well. So we will be taking in your questions as we go along. And the session today will be divided into 2 parts. The first part will be having a sharing and presentation by our 2 distinguished panelists. And then we'll have an open Q&A. So please use this, good opportunity to ask them questions. Yeah, so I see quite a number of you have said hi. Hi, Sylvia. Hi, Pamela. Hi, Fiona. Yep. So in case of any technical challenges, right, please do stay on the line and we'll try to come back as soon as we can. Okay, so like I've mentioned just now, today's webinar will be divided into 3 different segments. So the first segment is we'll have a sharing from Xiaoning, and second segment will be a sharing from Hongting. And of course, like I mentioned, we will have an open Q&A. So first and foremost, I would like to give an introduction of our first speaker. So, like ladies first. Xiaoning, Huang Xiaoning actually started her first business, Job Central, as a fresh graduate back in year 2000. So she grew and exited the business in 2011 to career builder. And since then, her life focus has been to be, she wants to be relevant and of course to pay it forward as well. And Xiaoning has been actively advising deep tech startups as well as social entrepreneurs. In the family, angel and PE portfolio, she and her husband Deshing has investments in more than 31 startups, of which 6 are led by women CEOs and 7 VC investments as well. So I'm super happy and excited to hear from Xiaoning. So Xiaoning, over to you.
Hello, thank you, Violet, and thanks. Hello, everybody within the audience. It's a little awkward that I cannot see you, so yeah. So Violet needs to give me the visual cue. So thank you very much for inviting me for the panel today. So I was go ahead and start from my payment voucher story. Okay, so back, okay, yeah, so the slide starting now. Okay, so like Violet shared, I started my business in late 90s, early 2000, right? So that was an era where every single business needed to do your external audit before you can do your annual filing. So I believe because most of us are in business here, you know what a payment voucher is like, and very likely as the decision maker, you will be asked to sign off on the payment voucher and sign off for your payments. So what happened was my first audit in late 2000, the external auditor came to my office in Golden Mile, and then he asked to see my files on my invoices, and then my payment records. So I sat him down in front of a computer. I was using an accounting system called QuickBook. At the time, it's not a cloud-based yet, but it was a standalone system that I used to manage my finances, because before that, when I was studying in the US, I used the personal QuickBook to manage my personal finances. So when I came back to Singapore, I brought a habit over. But when he asked to see my payment vouchers, he asked to see my invoices. I was like, I don't file the invoices. I'll print it out. I send to the customers. I don't need to keep the invoices. And I don't use payment voucher because I know what I'm paying for. So he was a little surprised. He was not very happy. And then he said that, how can you know what you're paid for when you don't have payment voucher to track? Because payment vouchers, after you pay out, right, your account department will actually assign a payment voucher number, and then they file the hard copies. And so I convinced him. I say, sample test me. So every payment that you want to see, I just basically did a keyword search. double click, I pull the record. And so within a minute, I can give him all the supporting documents that he needed. So he was not very, he was quite surprised. He was not very encouraged by the accounting system. He was in his mid-30s, if I remember correctly. So, so finally I convinced him, like he wasn't very happy. But then a few days later, after I received the audit report, he failed me. Basically, he said that you're using a system that he was not sure of, and he's a professional in the field, and that we were not using payment voucher. And so I got very angry, right? Because the thing is, I mean, it's a startup, so I can't afford to hire a bookkeeper. I was a bookkeeper for the business one evening a week, and then 2 other morning times I'm the salesperson, and then if one evening I'm the bookkeeper, and then another few evenings I'm the QC person, I'm the system testing person, and then weekends I got to teach tuition to feed myself, right? So anyway, I argued with him and argued with his boss, and finally they agreed that, okay, the system was okay, my record was in, because I could find everything for him very quickly, in fact, faster than the hard copy. So fast forward to 2009, we were preparing for IPO. And so we changed the auditor to a Big 8. And interestingly, the Big 8 auditor, I also had to convince him why I don't use payment vouchers. Hard copy payment vouchers. Okay, so, but this one was actually, I think the time is different, so it was actually a lot better. Then fast forward to January 2020. So now I run an investment club, and we had to do some audit at the beginning of the year. And the first thing the external auditor asked me is, can I see your payment vouchers? So I was quite surprised. This is literally 20 years later, okay? So it's very interesting for me that the audit sector, the mindset, the practices are very similar. So can we have the next slide, please? So touching on to digitalization, right? I think, so Hong Ting was still the main course. I'm the appetizer. I will touch more on the mindset towards digitalization. So I see digitalization in 2 ways. One is generally for your business management. So most digitalization projects that we see in the market are to improve your ROI, improve your workflow, improve your efficiency. So imagine having a digital store to increase your sales channel, installing an ERP, having cloud-based payroll accounting system, and even some knowledge management system for legal firms, right? It's quite common. So back in Job Central, one of the first system that we built out was a platform integrated CRM, customer relationship management. The primary purpose was to track sales, but we tied it back to the product so that we know how the customers are using the product. Then we give it a shopping cart so that we can bill using credit card billing directly. And by having all this, it allows us to see very quickly how the business is doing, and then it allows us to make decisions very fast. In a couple of years, actually a couple of months, just only a few months, we invested in this company called Org Industry. So Org Industry, you think of it as a industrial Fitbit. So the Fitbit that you wear to track your sleeping pattern and your exercise. So Org Industry is an industrial IoT startup. So what they do is plug and play sensors. So you install the sensor in your factory operation floor. It will track your assembly line production and feed the information to a cloud-based analytics system. And it will give you a real-time dashboard on whether there's any EU issues, QC issues, and everything. So it aids the customers in having a very quick decision-making. But this kind of digitalization, end of the day, does not change the fundamental nature of the business. So Job Central is still a job board. Manufacturing plants that install Org Industries sensors are still manufacturing plants. Okay, so it's very different from the second type of digitalization, where it's very much more transformational. So this kind of digitalization model, usually it could fundamentally change your business model and how your business operates. If you're doing the second type of digitalization, very likely you need a complete blood transfusion to make sure that your overall operation ties in with the core digital workflow that you're designing. So to put it across in a more using examples, is that you think of a restaurant. So for a restaurant to install ERP, inventory management system, these are all digitalization, right? But it's still running a restaurant. But to thrive in a COVID situation where you actually do not need retail outfront, to become a cloud kitchen, you need to reimagine how your whole workflow, how you need to support your customers who are not at home. So you need to reimagine the whole process. So you're still restaurants, but a cloud kitchen doesn't need to care about ambience. Your selling point is no longer the ambience. It's your menu. How do you make sure the food, when you get to the customer's home, are still tasty and not soggy? So you need to reimagine the whole experience and the business front, right? Can we have the next slide, please? So the day when I was preparing for this, right, I came across this article on Business Times. It's hyphen Smart Pharma. So it's a 20-over-year-old mid-scale SME, and they're doing very well. This is another example to give you a sense of the two kinds of digitalization. 20 years back, they already started their digital store, okay, but now they're looking at telemedicine. And their approach, so the digital store was an internal effort, but the telemedicine, they're actually going to partner with the external partner because the expertise are different. The productivity and the kind of talents you need are very different. So the decision from the business is to engage an external partner and work with them through a JV, I think. So if you are planning for your digitalization, you have to be very clear what kind of digitalization that you are embarking on, because one is to improve efficiency and productivity. The other one could fundamentally affect the way you think of your business, and your talent pool will be very different. And what's the impact from the complete change? Sometimes it could be quite drastic. So could we have the next slide, please? So as a boss, as the management, as a key decision maker for your business, we need to, so I was using the payment voucher to bring out the pain in both kinds of digitalization. But as the boss, you could actually mitigate this, right? A lot of norms and habits exist in our business, and some actually within the industry. So we need to recognize that a lot of norms and practices are designed for earlier days. And because they were never broken, we never had to look at them with a new pair of eyes. So because nothing is broken, our human tendencies, we don't have to fix it. But with the COVID, with the whole, I mean, nowadays the mindset is if you don't have a web front, you're not a trustworthy business. And the perception of the business really it's very much discounted. So we need to recognize that technology is a very big part of the business, even if you're not a technology business. So we need to recognize that digitalization is a strategic move, and it's not a tactical one, because we need to know that strategic move, you need to measure, you need to have an outcome, you need to have a approach to it's not a blaster to stop your gaping wound. Right, so versus a tactical move. For a tactic, so give an example again. If let's say now you want to go online, the strategy is to go online, having a good retail move and do a good delivery model. But if you just say that, oh, we just need a Facebook page, that is a tactical move because it doesn't really help anything. It just maybe help more people to reach out to you. That's all. So that's it. Actually, I think I'm using quite a bit of my time. I thought I would wrap up by giving some recommendations. So as the manager, first of all, when you're planning for your project, you should try to recognize the real working culture within your organization, not the mission, vision, culture that is stated on your company brochure. Okay. And secondly, you have to design the technology to suit your people and your culture. To give an example to illustrate these 2 points, 2 years ago, I invested in this cleaning company called Nimbus. Nimbus actually, they don't use robot to clean. They still use normal human being to clean. But we saw the inefficiencies in the cleaning industry. So the first thing that we did is to take advantage of the inefficiencies. All interaction between the company and the customers is through a digital front. And the customers, usually the facility managers or the admin managers, they can book the cleaning hours through a web front and with a shopping cart concept. And it's a way that to allow the customers to very quickly check what is the outcome of the cleaning today. So it's not just about engaging the customer on the digital front, it's also engaging our cleaning crew on the digital front. And you know, typical cleaning crew is in their late 40s and early 50s. So it's actually a little harder to get them onto the digital practice. So what we did was we make sure that the app that we built for them is something that will make sure that they come in and check in every day. So the attendance taking is through there. They have to take photos using this. And the key part is we make sure the language of the app is in either Chinese or in Mandarin or in Bahasa, because very few of them speak English. But to make sure that they have to understand what this app is about. So today, I think we're about 40 over cleaning crew. Every one of them is on the app. So in a sense, we use the app to manage both the clients and the crew. then the next thing we need to flip the question around as well, is the technology ready for us? So when a lot of companies, we actually understand what is a robust manifest or ERP system. But the thing is, now the new topic is, can we don't use human being to input data into the ERP? So there's a lot of OCR, a lot of automation that is improved. So the issue is accuracy. We need to be comfortable with that. So just a couple of months ago, I saw a deck on a startup that claims that they can do automatic month-end closing. And I was quite intrigued by that. So got to go through the duty to see whether it's for real. So actually, to conclude, regardless of the technology or the industry, digitalization has to be part of your business. And like I mentioned just now, if you don't have a digital face, the confidence and the trust in the business from an external public point of view is very much discounted. So we need to look after this very well. So I'm glad that, you know, we have 50 over attendees here today. We're all going to listen to Hong Ting to talk about the 5 steps to digitalize our businesses. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Xiaoning. So actually, the latest update is we have 65 attendees right now with us. So again, welcome to all of you who have just joined us. So, you know, like just to give a very quick recap on what Xiaoning has shared. And I also would like to hear from you guys as well. Like, what is the one thing that you have learned from Xiaoning's sharing so far? You can use the chat to share with us, because I think we all know that sometimes, you know, like when we are learning or we are just, you know, like getting inputs, it's like when we actually, you know, write it down, you know, like we are more likely to remember it. So for me, you know, like I think Xiaoning has shared with us that we need to realize that there are 2 different types of transformation. It's not just one type. So the first one is really just to increase ROI, workflow efficiency. So it's maybe more surface, but if you're looking at what she has said, overall blood transfusion, so there's going to be a very different type of transformation as well. And I think another thing that Xiaoning has shared with us is that it's very important to really recognize what is the real culture of your company, not so much, you know, just what is written on the wall, but you know, like what she has shared with regards to the cleaning company. So it's so important to realize that, you know, if the people who's using the technology or, you know, like part of the digital transformation, they are not even able to understand, you know, like let's say a certain language, and you put it in a certain language, obviously the transformation is going to fail. So thank you so much, Xiaoning, for your sharing. And like you say appetizer. So that was an awesome appetizer. So now, you know, we are going on to the main course. We have Hong Ting, who will be sharing next with us. So just a quick intro on Hong Ting. Hong Ting actually founded 2359 Media, a software development house specializing in mobility first solutions, after spending a formative year in Silicon Valley as part of the NUS Overseas College program. And since then, 2359 Media has transformed into one of Asia's leading mobile first software houses, specializing in mobility first solutions with clients ranging from MNCs, GLCs to local startups. And one of Hong Ting's latest project and company is also on AI, which is called botbot.ai. So over to you, Hong Ting.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, can see me? Okay. Hi, my name is Hong Ting. As Violet has already introduced me, I won't do that. And well, Xiaoning is too courteous and too humble in saying that was the appetizer. I learned a lot from the sharing as well. So can we get on the slides? And yeah, I'll just share about the 5 digitalization strategies next. The 5 digitalization strategies for most businesses to transform. And after which, I'm looking forward to the question and answers from there. Next. So the part 1 of my sharing is really around having the digital winner mindset. From Xiaoning's presentation, we already spoke a little bit, but next. If there are 2 things that I would like to point out, it is that from Sun Tzu Bing Fa, there are 5 essentials of knowing when to fight and of winning a war. So firstly is to know when to fight, when not to fight. Secondly is knowing who is the superior, who is the inferior within the environment. Thirdly, very important for digitalization, is having the same desire to win throughout the organization, from the general to the last soldier. Number 4 is to prepare ourselves, and number 5 is to have both the governance, which means alignment with government, as well as the individual army knowing what to do. So just from that, it tells us what we need to prepare ourselves in the current opportunity, in the current situation of how do we make this 危机 turn into a real opportunity for us rather than just danger. And I guess the second mindset shift to bring out is a quote by the founder and chairman of Amazon.com. He says that he frequently gets this question, what is going to change in the next 10 years? So that's a very interesting question, and I guess many people ask that question. But the more important question seems to be what is not going to change in the next 10 years. And if we think about what is not going to change in the next 10 years, these are things like knowing great products and the service that we have, knowing our customers, knowing what are the superior customer experience that we would have, and of course, efficient business operations to be able to support it. So yeah, with that in mind, the first thing is to really understand what is our business, who are our customers, and how do we delight them. And so technology is but just a tool to be able to help us achieve that. And with technology, I think a lot of which is play. So being able to observe, identify what are the patterns, being curious and open to trying out new things, and being able to work through some of the growing pains. So the quick story here would be that when construction companies needed to start using excavators rather than using shovels, the excavator actually took 100 years to be used popularly by construction companies. Why? Because a lot of people were like, oh, you know, the shovel, I won't hit rocks, etc. But eventually the excavator was so much more useful and could do the job of so many more people that even though at the start there were growing pains, like I can't go past this particular rock, but eventually we worked around it and construction companies started using excavators and succeeded. So next, we'll go into the 5 strategies right now of transforming the business. Next. The first one is really to connect like a digital native. So Xiaoning has already mentioned a couple of different examples of accounting software that can be used, ERP systems, etc. So I think it's important for us to be able to pick up a solution in each category and be able to tweak our workflow to match it. I'll just use Google Suite as an example for how we can connect like a digital native. So the first part is most of us will be pretty comfortable with picking up Gmail because all of us have either a Gmail or Hotmail account. But when we start looking at our business, actually, if we just look across the G Suite solution, there is your documents, there is the slides, etc., which allows us to collaborate rather than always needing to send files across. We can work on the same document together. So, and also, if we start using a G Suite, if, for users who already have G Suite, there is chat, there is Google Meet, which are all additional functions, which are corollary services that the service provider has built. If we are willing to play with some of these services and become a power user of them, we actually can maximize the benefits of that system. The one thing that I would like to add on this point is that I very often notice business owners and managers of big organizations one thing, always saying that, you know, for example, if my finance likes this particular system, I'm happy, let the finance go ahead and use it. But for me, I think where I observed a lot more success was where the managers, was where the bosses of such organizations actually just go in and give it a try. Like if someone says, I need to, I cannot pull a certain report from the software, just going in and seeing what is available in the market in terms of, for example, what can QuickBooks offer, what can Xero offer in terms of the different functionalities, and being able to start to think as if we live on digital platforms would actually help us be able to adopt these solutions a lot faster. Next. Now, the second point, and I'll touch this relatively quickly because a lot of us know about this, but to add on to what Xiaoning mentioned as a strategy, digital distribution is not just about setting up a Facebook page or setting up a Shopify e-commerce platform. It's really around thinking of what is our distribution strategy. So for example, for a B2C customer today, if you want to sell something to a customer, you would want to figure out what are the platforms that people are using. Is it easier to shift someone onto your website, onto your own e-commerce platform, or is it easier to sell through a marketplace? And other than websites, there are also platforms like Instagram and WhatsApp that has turned into where a lot of businesses are being done. So knowing your customers and knowing where they exist and what they are doing, what their behavior can help with the digital distribution strategy. The one additional thing to point out here though, it's not just for B2C. A lot of B2B customers actually have this opportunity to sell online as well. I think us working from home has taught us that we can do webinars, we can do a lot of things online, which I'll touch on a bit later. And the last bit on strategy as a pro tip is that we need to understand our branding as well. So for example, if I sell luxury bags, there are certain platforms like Qoo10, Shopee that may or may not be representative of my brand. So half of the questions might turn out to be, hey, is the bag that you are selling actually something which is authentic, or is it a ripoff? Yeah, so things to think about next. Okay, so I think the first two strategies were kind of straightforward in terms of increasing productivity, in terms of bringing business and sales and marketing online. The next three are going to be slightly more transformational in terms of how we actually think about our business. So the difference between digital distribution and this digital delivery is that now if we are already online, how do we change our business to sell a digital version of our product or our service? So one of the eye clinics that I spoke to recently, because of circuit breaker, there are certain types of advisories, there are certain type of surgeries that they still can perform, but a lot of their business, a lot of consultations cannot take place. So what they have done is that they have actually used Zoom to do webinars, to do virtual consults, to do sessions where after the initial session, if you do need an additional consult, you could do so with a doctor on Zoom. And from there, it becomes an additional new type of way that interact with their customers. And that has helped them deliver part of their product and service online. So that's one area in terms of digitalizing some of the products or service. The other part is also to think deeply about how do we change things since we are now online. For example, a lot of FMCG companies have the issue of having a lot of inventory, and whenever I need to stock a store, I need to have enough items of a certain type so that people won't see that, oh, I only have 2 items of this SKU left in my inventory. But now that everything can be digitally delivered, is it possible for us to do an on-demand dropship type service where I only order, or I order just enough so that I can do my immediate order, but instead of selling these 5 products that I'm good at, currently I can sell 500 products on the platforms that I'm selling. And also I could bundle, sell, customize. I'm not sure whether you guys notice on the aggregation platforms like Lazada, Amazon, etc. They've been doing a lot of bundle deals where instead of one seller selling, we can partner with different people and work together to make more money and succeed together. Next. So with the first 3 steps in place, next important question to ask in terms of strategy would be, what are the data-driven decisions that can make us successful? So previously, it might be things like how much inventory can we show within our store? What is the basic ones that don't change are things like revenue, cost, etc. But what other things? So for example, the number of people attending a webinar session, that might be a great marketing metrics to track. So how are we making sure that that information gets tracked and goes into our sales funnel? Maybe software such as HubSpot that goes into our sales conversation, be it on video or on email. And we are able to react real time rather than waiting for month-end reports. So Xiaoning just now mentioned about ERPs. I think the opportunity that is present at this moment is that actually a lot of data visualization software are easily available. And it is much faster for us to deploy rather than long-drawn ERP solutions. For example, what has been done by a marine engineering company is that they already have an accounting system. They use a customer relationship management system. What their ERP looks like is that we actually pull data from those two systems, from those three systems, another one being one of their project management systems, so that the boss can figure out what is the project profitability of different projects that they are on. Where are areas? So immediately when COVID hit, the question was, okay, is the services business doing well, or is the spare parts business doing better? How do we improve on the business parts that are doing better, and what are the good things that have turned out from the different campaigns that we have put in place? Next. And the last part, which, okay, this becomes a long conversation, is that if for industries that have not been digitalized as much, is there a way for us to become an industry platform to really change our business? So for example, if today we are an operator of kids' indoor playgrounds, is there a possibility of, instead of just being an operator of one playground, how do we actually become a platform where parents have a choice? So the ultimate goal for parents is to engage their kids, is to make sure that they are entertained, that they do something that they can actually learn and grow in multiple different ways. So is there a way to build a platform that can pull in all the past so-called competitors that you might have into friends, that we can, instead of compete with each other, we can bind together to build something that grows the ecosystem all together? So kind of the slight caveat is that this requires a long drawn process, but if we put together the mindset of being a winner, we also need to be open to having these conversations with friends, hopefully, well, with past competitors. Hopefully they become our friends and we can grow the industry together. Next. So the last part of my sharing, just very quickly, is to talk about automation in general. Next. So sometimes we think about automation as AI, machine learning, something really, really big. Actually, it is not that difficult. From my point of view, it's actually much harder, much more technically difficult to build a good e-commerce platform than to very quickly think about automation. So the hard part about automation, though, is to really ask ourselves the hard question of which part of this is the most important. So for example, a finance person today might be copying and pasting information from the ERP onto a management report that we have. So, but is the strategy part of this finance person more important, or is it the reporting portion of just being able to make sure that the information is correct? And obviously we would want our finance person to be able to help us think strategically. So this portion of copying and pasting, if we can identify what is the pattern of what this person can do, actually there are a lot of technologies out there to be able to automate all these processes. And very often we had the question that, you know, it's not possible for businesses like my business to work from home. But in the last 2 months, I think a lot of us have shocked ourselves by being able to prove that, hey, you know, it's actually possible to do all of these things from home, or we could automate a lot of these processes. So if we are able to think of automation and machine learning as kind of teaching a reliable but inexperienced staff, and being willing to constantly train this staff until he or she becomes operational, that's actually all we need to think about when it comes to automation. And with that, I come to the end of my presentation next. I think for us, other than the MNCs, big companies that we work with, recently we have been working a lot more with SMEs who's thinking about digital transformation to just talk through some of these processes. So looking forward to the Q&A session where we can dive deeper into some of these. Back to Violet.
Thank you so much, Hong Ting, for your sharing. I've took down so much notes. Yep. So yeah, now we would like to do the Q&A session. So we have a number of questions that have been sent in by our participants. But meanwhile, do send in your questions, because we really would like to help you address any challenges that you're currently facing with regards to digitalization. So one of the things that, you know, like Hong Ting, Xiaoning, and I have to work through while preparing for this session is we realize that companies are really at different stages when it comes to digitalization. So maybe for us to get a better understanding understanding of where you are at, like you can just share with us in the chat right now. So maybe like into 3 categories. Like let's say if your company right now, like the main digitalized part of your business is like what Hong Ting has said, is maybe using email, maybe using like more basic technology, like, so that's one. So like let's say you are already using a full suite of Google platforms, or like even like everything is on ERP, like so maybe that's 2. And then 3, it's like you are like fully digitalized, and now you're looking really at the next level of like transforming your business, like what Xiaoning has mentioned just now, that you are like looking for a blood transfusion to completely transform your business to the next level. So maybe all of you can just share with us right now in the chat. You can just write 1, 2, or 3, so it gives us a better idea of where everybody is in terms of our participants. Yep. So I see some answers right now, and I also see some of you putting in more questions. That's awesome. Yes. So yeah, keep your answers coming. Yeah, this is supposed to be a more interactive session. Yeah, so we see a number of you have been sending in your answers. Yeah, that's great. So I think this definitely gives us a better idea of like where our sharing should be focused on. So my first question for our panelists today is we have a very good question here, which is, okay, Xiaoning has touched on a crucial point of IT adoption, and companies may overlook the importance of onboarding to make sure that tech is being used effectively. But of course, each company has its unique situation. For example, the staff might not be receptive. So, Xiaoning, maybe you can share like some questions that companies can ask themselves to help identify some of these potential pitfalls.
Okay, so I actually don't have questions to ask the staff. My style is, you can say I'm a lot more authoritarian in that style, in that sense. So I will not ask the question to the staff. So what I'll do is, so this is how we ran Job Central last time. So typically, so I have a core management team of 7 people. So these 7 of us, we must all agree unilaterally that this is a good move that we're going to have. So once we agree on this move, we will implement, and in that implement process, there will be a lot of soft selling to the rest of the company to share with them why we are doing this, why this is a must, and then what's the timeline that we look for this to be happen. So using the CRM as an example, right? Initially, after we launched, it was painful. The salespeople, I have 40 over salespeople, they refuse to key in their updates. So we had to come up with carrot and stick. And then from there, we came out with processes to control the reactions. And then we came out with practices that say that if the customer is not tagged to your name, you cannot call the customer. So we work around their behavior. The reason why we do it this way is I realized that it's very difficult to get people to adopt new processes. And sometimes, unfortunately, the more you ask them, the more you try to be participative, you will have so much different opinions that you cannot please everybody. And so that's my style. So I have my angle in mind. I will work my processes to make sure that happen. And then after that, a lot of soft sell, a lot of behind the scene individually talking, especially if you know who are the core, not necessarily leaders, but you know who are the people leaders of our team. You got to buy those people in. Yeah. And then the workflow got to come through. Yeah, that's how we do it. So by the time, I think it took us almost 6 months to get everybody on board. But after that, it's very clear how, and it's also a good way for us to manage relationship within the sales team. You know, salespeople, they fight for leads. And now with this thing, it's very clear cut. Who owns what customer? No fight. Yeah.
Yep. Thank you, Xiaoning, for that. Hong Ting, you have anything to add?
Yeah, I think the other thing, just to add on to what Xiaoning has mentioned, absolutely correct. I think it's very hard to be democratic about some of these systems. But the one thing that I want to add on to that is sometimes we make decisions, as bosses, we make decisions, but we don't use the same systems. So I think it's also important to be the first ones to key all our data in, to make sure that we are using the system. We know what are the pains, what are the differences, that the challenges that people would have. And if our staff sees that happening, then usually they'll be more receptive of it.
Agree.
Yeah, thank you for that sharing. Okay, we have another question, which is the conference and events industry has been so badly impacted by the current COVID-19 situation because there are no physical events and everybody's having meetings on Zoom and conducting webinars like this one. So how could these companies overcome this crisis, and what are some of the digital strategies that could help them now? Maybe Xiaoning, we can start with you.
Okay, so for Angel Central, so our core business, so three core pillars for the business, right? One is workshops and training. So we educate investors to help them understand how to invest in startups. Then so that is actually the one that's very badly hit. So I think it was end of February when my partners were discussing, shall we move our pitch days and all the workshops online? And then we were very worried that how would it impact our physical, because the time you can really see what's happening in Wuhan. But we were a bit reluctant to move online because we were afraid that it will affect our physical activity numbers. But now, you got to do it, right? So after we did it, we realized that the situation called for it. Everybody has to get on board. But very openly, I don't have a clear revenue model for a webinar yet. So in the past, we will run workshop that's between 20 and 30 people. We'll charge per head basis. Now for the webinar, we just run it at, so our workshop usually is about 3-4 hours long. But we were not confident of charging a webinar-based program. So our webinar became very much like 60 minutes to 90 minutes and always panel style sharing, information-based. And then we make sure that the speaker typically are the styles that are very in sync with us. So we don't like to beat around the bush. We get speakers who really speak straight to the point and give you straight answers. So our response has actually been very good. So I think from the business point of view, I mean, I don't have a crystal ball, or my crystal ball run out battery. I don't know what's going to happen. I can't tell whether webinar is going to work. But in the meantime, I changed my business objective. My objective is continuously engage with my members, with my community. And this is also a good time because I'm running a double-sided network, right? I need to engage with the startups and I need to engage with the investor community. So I make sure my content jumps to both sides, but they are all not revenue generating for now. We're going to start experimenting doing the 3-hour-long workshop online. So far we did 90 minutes. We charge half the price. It seemed to work. So now we're going to go to the 3 hours. So you still need to experiment. But I think what is nice from what I can see now is that people are a lot more receptive and people are becoming more comfortable. And I think most of the time, I think one of the key things I think Hong Ting mentioned also, a lot of times when we're not sure, we just experiment with baby steps before you invest in a big chunk. So we are doing that, and without doing that, we can't tell the experience, right? Even participating in the webinar, participating yesterday, I just attended a virtual demo day. It's all very new experiences, and I think a lot of the MICE providers are really coming in with a lot of new approaches to handle this. So we are all learning from each other. There's no best practices yet, but I think it's just to keep an open mind.
Thank you, Xiaoning. Yeah, Hong Ting, so what do you think, based on also the 5 steps you have shared just now? So because I think for this question, I'm not sure whether the person who have asked this question, is she is the platform, as in she usually arrange conferences and events for others? So I think if she is, right, so basically because everybody might just go online themselves, right, and just do Zoom webinars themselves. So in a way, they might be cut off of that that whole structure. So, from your point of view, maybe what are some of the things that can help them overcome this crisis?
Yeah, I think so for the MICE industry, it's very much like how Xiaoning has described Asia Central. It's a two-sided marketplace, and it's to connect the right people to the right content. So I think while the online webinars have closed this gap in terms of being able to bring a lot of content together, there are still a lot of people and businesses who want their time in the day to be able to share their information. So that's on one end of the spectrum. And for the ones that are more learning, just to share one of the stories here. So one of my friends who used to be a motivational speaker, who is a motivational speaker, sorry. What he has done to change his model was that he gives a lot more free webinars nowadays but instead he's charging for mentorship sessions. So if you want a 12-month program with him to be able to talk deeply with him, he has adapted his entire business model to go for more one-to-one interactions. And similarly, I have seen education platforms who have turned it such that they make their content free, but instead they charge for tutorials. So in the past, I think there were some like Harvard Extension, etc., which tried this in the past. But I think there are some learnings from how Harvard Extension, how edX have done in the past that we can actually pull into business events and change the model for these interactions. So instead of paying for the event, I would pay for the ability to be able to talk to Xiaoning one-on-one and have 15 minutes of a time of part of networking as part of this event.
Thank you for that. I think that makes a lot of sense, and I think we really need to think differently, because obviously in this time is like yeah, we really need to pivot. So we have another question here. So many older companies have leadership that do not understand digital much. However, the transformation must be embraced from the top. So how would you suggest us tackle the situation? So Xiaoning, you want to go first?
Hong Ting, you want to go first?
Sure. No, I think we don't need to overthink this. In the past, I think I first signed up for my Facebook account in 2005. At that time, I was telling my parents, hey, you know, there's this new platform, Facebook, you can share with your friends, etc. Because they had this problem of they wanted to connect to their friends. At the time, there was no WhatsApp, there was no Facebook. But they were very resistant. But look at where we are today. Everyone is on Facebook, whatever age, right? I think the desire from the leadership needs to be there that, hey, you know, this is what we want to do. Instead of need to do something else, is really to take the plunge, start using Gmail, start replying your employees in Gmail. Then usually the whole organization will be able to move better. I think for the older workers that might be more resistant, a huge part is to try to figure out what are simple things that they can do to try in that system. So for example, what I've seen one company do is that to get their sales staff to use more email rather than physical mail, they taught them that emails has an auto reply function. If emails come in of a certain type, you can just auto reply instead of needing to manually intervene. Then that particular elder sales staff saw that and was like, now I can spend more time with my grandkids. Yeah, so that became a very good motivation for them to really start this journey.
Yeah, so it's really about focusing on like what they can get out of it. Like if they can see the instant gratification, right, then the chances of them changing is much faster. Xiaoning, any thoughts?
That sounded like how I managed my mother in how she handled my kids. I think for the older leadership, I believe their intention, they definitely want the business to grow. So I'm just wondering whether using numbers to speak to them, using efficiency, using productivity to speak to them, to bring them on board. But of course, they have to trust whoever is going to lead the project will make it count. So I think it's a lot of time, I think it's more expectation management. I mean, don't promise the sky and then don't over commit. Because I think my dad runs small businesses. I think it's really quite difficult for them for ERPs in terms of hundreds of thousands of dollars, you don't ask them to do it. So actually Hong Ting's sharing has a very valid point. Nowadays, so like my CRM, right, we had to code it internally because there was no CRM in the market that we could integrate. So there are actually a lot of resources out there. It's basically a couple of dollars per month. The investment is not big. It's just that you need to take the time to understand how to use it. So as the leader, as the person who is going to spearhead the project, maybe really spend the time to understand that product and how you can integrate it to implement the outcome. And as long as the financial resources is not too high, I think it's worth the experiment and worth spending the time to figure it out. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Another question here we have from an investor's point of view. So Xiaoning, I think definitely this is up your alley. Hong Ting, I think you do some investments, in startups as well. Is this a good time to start up or diversify? So Xiaoning.
So Sylvia, do you mean diversify as in going into different asset classes, or to go into startup investing? It's a little broad, the question. So I will answer it as, if you have not done investing before, this is actually a good time to think about investing and understand the different asset classes. Startup investing is actually only one of the asset classes, and it's in fact is the most risky asset class. Okay, so startup is high risk, high return, and it's binary because within 12 months, you can know that whether it's yes or no, 0 to 1. So 90% within 12 months, it's 0. Okay, so you want to have that strategic thinking and think about this asset class. But for your general, I mean, your bonds and equities and all this, I think if you want to start now, maybe the market has really run off a little bit. I think all the banks will come out to say that the bottom is over. I think, yeah, even UOB, the most conservative bank, has said that the bottom is over, it's on the way up already. So you probably need to watch a little bit more. So one of the key things that, so for my family personal portfolio, we spend a lot of time looking overall, and definitely need to diversify across different asset classes. It's not something that you say, I want to do it now, and then I start doing tomorrow. You need to spend some time to come up with a strategy and know your own objective and timelines. Yeah.
Hong Ting, anything to add to that?
Yeah, Xiaoning covered a lot. I think yeah, it's just to get into the market and start investing. There are a lot of asset classes that are relatively lower. So yeah, just start to try something.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Thanks, guys. So one of the questions I have for you guys, right, is, because like digitalization is of course a lot about using the different apps out there, be it like for the business or even for yourself as well, right? So I just want to hear from both of you, what is the 1 or 2 apps that has been most transformational for your company and or for yourself?
I started with Google Suite because I think that was one of the first things that we started with from day one when the company was started. At that time, Google was giving out free 50 accounts per company. That was then we signed up for 2 or 3 accounts. Then the moment we went past, but the interesting thing is at the start, we didn't use many of the features. It was largely just email. Then when we went past 50 people, that was when we looked at it and we go, are we going to pay $12 per user per month for this? Then that was when we really looked at the whole system and say, hey, actually there's all these different collaborative systems that we can use. And yeah, then that became the DNA of how the company operates. I think that's the one that has delivered a lot of value. One of the questions also was asking about incurring a lot of cost. Actually, together, let's ignore government grants first. A lot of the SaaS companies out there are giving COVID 1-year packages. So they are giving huge discounts for CRMs, etc., for you to adopt for the first year. So I would say if you, they're very affordable now, even for SMEs. So do take a look at those. And of course, yeah, with SME Go Digital, there are a lot of grants to try out things too.
Thank you, Hong Ting. What about you, Xiaoning?
So, Job Central, I used to have a full tech team, right? I have a designer,
Yes.
tech team. But when I started in Job Central, it's
Yeah.
me. And I'm a non-tech person, but I'm a non-tech person who cannot read HTML code. But I still need to get my website up, and I still need to get it. So there was this, what is it called? The one that helped, it's like WordPress, but for digital design. Yeah, Wix. That was a transformational. So Wix was really transformational for me because I could design my own website. I can have my own Q&A. I have my own chatbot. I have my whatever thing, right? It was really very simple, and it was only $150 a year. Right. So it really allows you to very quickly come up with what you need. And I think that was transformation for me, and also confidence building for me, that like I'm no longer just the boss who know how to talk, don't know how to do website design. So it was quite a life-changing experience. And now I can easily tell the kids, if mommy can do it, I can learn, you can learn too. Nowadays the apps are getting really, really easy to pick up. It's really just plug and play, drag and drop. It's not difficult. Yeah.
So just to repeat, is Wix, is it? WIXX. Yeah.
There are a few platforms like that lah. So Wix, Squarespace, yeah.
Yes. But I like Wix because it ties to Gmail also. Yeah.
Okay, thank you guys for your sharing. So, you know, just a quick recap, like today we have talked about like, you know, so many different things, you know. First and foremost, we started with Xiaoning sharing with us, you know, like the different types of digital transformation or digitalization. So we need to realize that, you know, which one are we going for, something that's more in-depth or something that, you know, is like helping us with the ROI, workflow or efficiency right now. And I think, you know, like definitely one of the things that we really need to look at, which both Xiaoning and Hongting have shared, is also like at the end, transformation is really about understanding our business and understanding our customer as well. So, you know, digital transformation is not just for the sake of it. It's like, you know, everybody around us is talking about it and we are going to do it. So it is really about, you know, not just looking at what is going to change in the next 10 years, but it's also looking at what is not going to change in the next 10 years, which is, you know, what is our business model, who are our customers, you know, what are we trying to do to delight them? And then, you know, from there, you know, picking solution in each category. I thought that was really helpful, because I think a lot of times, a lot of SMEs probably, you know, just struggle with this. It's like they are thinking, okay, everybody's talking about transformation, like how do I even get started, right? So I think what Hongting has shared, like connect like a digital native, look at all the different categories in your business and pick a solution. You know, like I think Xiaoning has talked about using Wix, Hongting has talked about using the full suite of G Suite, which, you know, I think a lot of us probably have not explored as well. And of course, like looking at data, I totally agree. Like data is so important to help us know what we are doing, because I think if we do not track or measure, right, then there's no point, like just keep going and don't even know like what are the differences that we can make. So once again, thank you so much Hongting and Xiaoning for your sharing today. I really, on behalf of the committee, I would like to thank both of you guys for sharing your expertise with us, and also of course like to thank our committee for organizing the webinar as well. So before I end this webinar, I'd just like to make a quick mention of all the different subsidiaries we have here at SCCCI, because I think, you know, Hongting and Xiaoning has shared so many different resources, and at the same time, I just want to let you know that we have a lot of different resources here at SCCCI that you can look at. So we have the SME Center, which is actually a collaboration between Enterprise Singapore as well as SCCCI. So this is actually a place where you can, you know, get a lot of information on business consulting on as well. And on the other hand, we also have the IOB, which is the Institute of Business. So there are a lot of different trainings, and right now, actually, a lot of these courses have been moved to e-learning. So, you know, this is actually a great time for you to actually check out any courses that might actually benefit your employees. And so for more information about both of these, you can check it out from the respective website that's being shown on the screen right now. And I hope all of you have enjoyed our session today. And of course, if you have any further follow-up or questions or, you know, partnerships or collaborations with our speakers, feel free to contact them at the email address that's being shown on the screen right now. A survey link will also appear after you have left the webinar. So if you have any feedback for today's webinar, we would love to hear from you. We would also love to hear from you what other, you know, like topics that you would like to hear from in upcoming webinars. And I also like to share with you the QR codes for you to access our CWG Facebook page as well as LinkedIn page. So you can go there to know more about all our latest initiatives as well as upcoming activities. So we have come to the end of today's webinar. It has been awesome having all of you. Thank you for attending. So please stay safe and take care. Thank you. Bye.